name's Leah Chandler. For folks who don't know, until recently I was the interim associate dean of career development, and I left GGU to help launch and build BALI, for Bay Area Legal Incubator. And I'm getting over a cold, and the only part that's left is I have no voice. So I was sort of joking before I came here that I should like really hurry up and quickly cut a country western album because I have like the greatest singing voice right now. It'll only last a hot minute. Anyway, so bear with me if I just sound a little peculiar. Before I get into like what BALI is and sort of benefits of it and how you would apply and all those kinds of things, let me get to sort of a general range. How many folks are actually graduates of GGU? Well, so you're already out and have graduated. Generally, like, can you give me a shout out of how many years out you are?
2.
Okay. How many? 1. Okay. Can you? Roughly?
Like 5 or 6. But I stepped away from the law for a little while.
That's okay. I don't care.
I needed a.
That's okay. In many ways, I have to. And then for folks who are students, I'm wondering how many of you are third years? Okay. Any 2 years? And then first years? Great. Welcome. Okay, that helps me figure out how to bring this to get a sense of where you all are in your legal careers at this point. So the Bay Area Legal Incubator launched officially on January 11th. It's been in the planning stages for the last 2+ years, almost 3 years. It's a really interesting collaborative endeavor between the Alameda County Bar Association. The Alameda County Bar Association has a nonprofit subsidiary called the Volunteer Legal Services Corporation, which is also a collaborative partner. And then 5 Bay Area law schools, which is GGU, USF, Hastings, Berkeley, and Santa Clara. And then also, as a collaborative partner, is Alameda County Law Library. And the hub for the incubator is located in the Alameda County Law Library, and we are taking over 3,000 square feet of not so used book space, shelving space of the law library and transforming that into a hub. The books that will be all out by the end of tomorrow and the construction starts. So we're using a temporary space within the law library now, and our full hub will be done within the month, by the end of next month. So we'll have 3,000 square feet. The incubator is designed not to be a firm, but to be a central community for people that are launching solo practices. So everyone's launching their own individual solo practice. Some folks hope to grow their solo practices into firms. Some folks hope to grow their solo practices into nonprofits. Some folks hope to be a solo practitioner until the day they die or retire, whatever it is. So folks have different ideas of what their venture might look like as it grows. And I always say that my job is sort of like being fairy godmother. I kind of get a sense of who people are, and I try to figure out what support folks need to build up their practice and accelerate its development as quickly as possible. All of the schools have a lot of leeway in picking who they sponsor to be part of the incubator program. And all the schools can pick up to 3 people each per year. The new entry group the next entry group will start on February 1st of next year. The central criteria is that everybody has to have a commitment to building a modest means or sliding scale legal practice moving forward. We're looking for people who really want to be part of an effort to serve a radically growing, expanding cohort of the American population that can't afford traditional legal fees of unlimited numbers of hours at $300 an hour, which includes most of us. A whole lot of people don't feel really comfortable saying to someone, sure, go ahead, charge me whatever you will, for however many hours you think you're going to need to do this. And with the widening income gap in our country, there's more and more folks who cannot qualify for free legal services, but who feel completely shut out of accessing legal assistance. And that's what we're hoping to grow is what I call sort of a community of community attorneys. Folks who are from and part of a growing class of folks who can't afford what the top 1% can, and who want to be part of sort of making the legal process accessible. So everyone has to have a commitment to this modest means representation of their practices. Everyone has to show a demonstrated commitment to narrowing the justice gap, and or commitment to social justice, which I will say are two distinct things. And we've had a lot of discussion at the incubator, and either one, demonstration of either one is important. Everyone agrees on that. And then we're also looking for folks who have what we call entrepreneurial spirits. And what we mean by that is folks who realize that building a venture takes risk and who are willing to take those kinds of risks. Folks who try to think creatively, folks who like building things. Perhaps you've had experience of building something before, whether it's a program or an endeavor or whatever it is. Maybe you haven't, but you always wish you had. People who have that sort of like fire to work on their own, be their own boss, and who have the practical ability to understand that that is risky and they want to do it anyway. Okay? That's sort of what we're looking for. And then on top of it, the individual schools have some additional criteria. So at Golden Gate is not limiting so far the process to anyone from any particular graduating class. It's open to anyone to apply as long as you can make an argument that this program will legitimately help you accelerate your practice. So for example, we have one Golden Gate alum participating now who's 9 years out. And he spent 6 years as a staff attorney at the Ninth Circuit, and then he went on working at a litigation boutique. And when I talked to him and interviewed him actually for being part of BALI, I was like, what do you think? Are you going to feel annoyed being around all these newbies? Like some of the people, at least some portion of them will be just having graduated. Are you going to find them to be annoying as hell? How's this cohort going to feel to you? And he was really clear. He's like, look, I might have done what many people would see as prestigious in the legal profession, but he's like, I would be at the Ninth Circuit having things sort of magically come to me. He's like, I never had to file things. I didn't have to think of the practicalities. I didn't have to recruit clients. I didn't have to build relationships with clients. And he's like, what I really need help with is managing a law practice. And he's like, and so no, he's like, I feel like I might actually be more behind in that than some people coming right out of law school because of what his experience was. He's like, granted, on substantive law in the areas that he's interested in, he's like, I might know a lot more, and actually I could share with the cohort what I know. He's like, on these other things I feel kind of behind. And that was a really legitimate argument for why this would be fruitful for him, even the number of years out that he is, right? Other folks could be very different. We have a BALI participant who's, I think, 2 years out. And he similarly had done a lot of judicial externships through his time at GGU, had done an enormous amount of experiential learning, but mostly in court settings, and had continued to work for one of the judges that he had clerked for after he graduated. And he also was saying the same thing, similar. He's like, I feel like I need, in his case, he's like, I kind of need both. I'm starting to realize that I don't want to practice in the area where I've been a clerk. I want to switch topics. We have to pick this up. I need help. I need coaching in this new area of law. He's like, I know I'm a quick study, but I need help with that. He's like, I'm kind of in the same boat of like, I don't know what it's like to represent people. I don't know what it's like to be a zealous advocate. So that was, again, legitimate argument for why those folks would fit. And they're in different spaces. And in contrast, there's a gentleman who just graduated from, actually, which one? He's from USF, right out of law school, but he did so much volunteer service and externships doing housing law, and he's doing eviction defense work that, quite frankly, I don't think I can find a mentor in San Francisco that knows more about that than he already knows. Okay, so he has the substantive stuff straight out of law school, but he also needs help really thinking of, he's like, what's marketing? I don't know what marketing is. I don't know how to do that. So that's his deficit. But regardless, I guess my point is this, is that we're looking for people who have an idea of how they want to practice, and they also know where their gaps are, that you know that the program would make sense to help you. So it's a 2-year program. The first 6 months has sort of an apprenticeship component built into it. And I want to really emphasize this because it makes a significant financial impact on folks in the program. In the first 6 months, we ask that folks commit to a 20-hour-a-week pro bono service component at either a nonprofit, government agency, or with an attorney with a large pro bono load that you're working with. And that you do that work really as a form of an apprenticeship to build up very rapidly real skills. And the folks that we negotiate with to do these apprenticeships have to agree to allow their BALI attorneys who come into these roles to really take on cases, see them from the beginning to end. We want it to be more advanced than a typical externship, and we want folks to build up skills rapidly. That said, doing 20 hours of work a week for free, that has significant financial implications. So I want to be very transparent about that. And one of the application questions for the GGU application is, financially, how are you going to sustain yourself for this period? And we want folks to think about that because we want it to be something that you're not being set up to fail. There's a small stipend in the first 6 months. It's really intended as a safety net, not for your personal well-being or like what you need to survive, but really to sustain your practice. So right now that safety net is set as just $500 a month. That's enough to help pay your malpractice insurance, to pay your transportation costs, and not a whole lot more, okay? And we have that because we realize we're sort of tying folks' hands in terms of their ability to make money rapidly in that first 6 months. So we have something, we're trying to raise enough money to raise that to $1,000 a month. I can't commit to that at this point. But so currently it's at $500 a month. And there's no rent or anything that you have to pay in for that first 6 months. During that time, you can begin immediately receiving modest means referrals, so paying referrals for people who make up to 3 times the poverty level, through the Alameda County Bar Association and also through the Contra Costa Bar Association, and I'm working on getting other bar associations to agree to do that, but some of them don't have as well developed of a modest means referral panel. And then one of the things I'm doing right now actually is building up our website, which I encourage you to look at, which is Area Legal Incubator.org. And we've worked with a website developer to make it so that we can do client recruitment basically through the website itself, and then also being in the law library. Even with construction underway, we're getting lots of people, random people coming up to us wanting to know who we are, because who goes to a law library except for new attorneys and people who want a lawyer and don't have one. So we have this intake system that we're developing through the website as well as frankly through our hub location, and so I'm constantly looking for how to build up more of client base. But even so, your first 6 months, you're limited in how much time you can spend doing that kind of work, right, because of the pro bono requirement. After that first 6 months, there's a 20-hour-a-week requirement that you do modest means representation. So that means representing people who earn up to 3 times the poverty level. If you did pro bono work for people below poverty level, I obviously would include that as counting for that criteria as well. But at least 20 hours of your week has to be representing people of modest means or less. And one of the things we're going to start in July is starting to house some clinics, so finding areas of law that we're providing free clinics to the community in Alameda County, and then attorneys at BALI can pick up more complex cases out of it, but certainly like the free part of that clinic would count towards those hours, for example. Okay, so starting at 6 months, moving forward to 1 year out, folks start paying rent into the program at $250 a month. Or I guess we would call it overhead. It pays for the whole program, both space, and there's a lot of other freebies that are included, which I'll talk about. And then for the last year, the overhead participation fee goes up to $500 a month. So in terms of benefits, there's the shared office space. Everyone gets their own dedicated desk as well as paper filing storage. We have a multi-purpose photocopying, fax, scan, whatever machine it is. And we're not charging for copies unless they're in color, because that's not included in our baseline thing, but it's still way cheaper than going to a place and printing. You also get free LexisNexis, free Clio case management software, free OnLaw, and CEB resources, free website development and management through an organization called Legal.io that developed BALI's website, and really they helped people create really rocking websites with basically a half-hour conversation for each individual attorney, and it's free to get those websites. You can keep them even when you're out of the program. I'm trying to think of what other freebies there are. Folks keep coming, as folks are figuring out what they need for their practices, and they're coming to me with it, then I'm going out and finding out if we can get those things for free. Folks also get free, unlimited use of PLI programs, so anything live as well as recorded. A lot of attorneys, as they pick up things that are new to them, will like watch a PLI video, do the work, watch another video, do the work. Also, quite frankly, PLI, if any of you have not gone to their trainings, they give really good food. And so if there's a PLI training going in San Francisco at lunchtime, you may as well go, because you'll get an amazing lunch. So that's just an aside. So there's a lot of perks being part of it. My job is to be sort of the in-house resident mentor. Sometimes I know things people need help with off the top of my head. Other times I have to go searching for folks who I know or who do know and who agree to do either sort of one-off mentoring opportunities around that issue or develop more long-term relationships. Every participant gets at least one. Starting about 4 months into the program, we started linking folks up with at least one formal mentor who agrees to spend at least 1 hour a week with the participant. So the attorneys in the program get to pick what area that they want a mentor in. So someone might practice in a few different areas, or maybe they'll want, they have some mentors lined up in practice areas, but they don't have someone lined up who really can talk to them about the nuts and bolts of building their practice. They might choose to have a mentor around law practice management instead. And then it's my job to play matchmaker at that point and find people who meet the criteria, both in terms of subject matter, but then also maybe geographic location of practice, type of practice, whatever, and hook people up with these mentors. We've had an incredible, overwhelming level of support from people who are members of the Alameda County Bar Association, and we have dozens and dozens of attorneys who have volunteered already in one way or another, and it's just incredible goodwill. Plus a number of retired judges who want to come in and help with trainings. And then the last thing I'll say is there's a 2-week-long intensive boot camp at the beginning of the program. It's part-time, not full-time, so that we don't all die of boredom. And then from that point forward, about every 2 weeks, there's some kind of continuing education training in-house. And as I said, unlimited PLI access, and then also free access to anything that the Alameda County Bar Association puts on as well. So I think the average attorney in the program, we're 3 months in, the average attorney has done more continuing legal education for free than most attorneys do in the first 6 years of their practice. Because I've been asking them to report on the number of hours of trainings that they've done, and it's really pretty remarkable. And it's getting them up to speed very, very quickly in what they're capable of doing, as well as being able to link them up with folks to handhold them through little points that they're uncertain about. Okay, so that's general overview. Do folks have questions? There must be some. But you did the first little timid hands to go.
Obviously, there's different benchmarks set up to help you along the way. When you get to that 2-year mark, is there any sort of, all right, well, here's ideas of where you might want to set up your office outside, or kind of what the transition from
Right,
being
so
part of
one of the things I'm working on is figuring out what's the most useful format to have sort of regular check-ins about people's actual group check-ins, about people's end development, I should say, around their own business plans and their own launch. And I'm trying to figure out if it makes sense to have that equally spaced throughout the whole 2 years, or if we should front end a bunch and then revisit in the last 6 months, almost like a, anyway, I have primarily represented people in prison, so I always think of like release planning. It's kind of from the Incubator. I don't mean it that way. It sounds horrible. And anyway, I'm starting to think that we'll probably front end most of the stuff in the second 6 months to the 1-year mark, where we help people really start at that point when they have even more clarity of exactly what they want to do, because they've had at least 6 months to experiment and run amok, which many people are, kind of like taking anything and everything and trying to figure out what they hate and figuring what is bad and not working for them. But that from the 6 months to the 1-year mark, having a weekly, or bi-weekly, every 2 weeks, have a regular check-in, help with dividing a business plan up into individual sections and fortifying each part. And part of that obviously would be around location. And I envision having the groups sort of do research on all the shared office environments and other kinds of ways that solos find co-tenancies basically with each other. in the Bay Area to start figuring out where they would want to be located and how much it would cost. And part of it also would be creating realistic budgets. So that all of these perks that folks can get for free while they're in the incubator program also, for example, cost a lot of money if you pay for them in the outside world. Members of the board of the Alameda County Bar Association, when they heard that folks were getting like the CEB and on-law stuff for free, were like, I pay $6,000 a year for that. And like wow. And I think part of what we need to have folks really know is like the monetary value of all these in-kind things so that you can actually plan a very realistic budget and be targeted and aiming for that for after the 2 years. I also just want to say our attorneys geographically come from all over the Bay Area, and the Bay Area is huge, right? And so one of the things I'm realizing that was not in the original design plan is that we have to make all of our trainings available by webcasts. Right now I'm doing everything at minimum by conference calls, so people can call into trainings and be part of discussions remotely, because people are also in court and in different places, and I have to make it accessible. But I envision that as we get better, I get better in building up these remote access points that will be able to extend a community to some extent to our alums of the program after that 2 years, so that people can still be part of an online community and take part in trainings and things, which it would cost no additional overhead for BALI to maintain for folks. And so I don't imagine sort of forcing people out of the community, but figuring out ways that folks could still tap in if they need resources, but also frankly contribute to the training of folks who are coming up. But that's kind of in the future, and I haven't figured it all out yet. That's maybe. Yeah?
Yes, so Cynthia, we met when you were working here at GGU.
Yeah.
And I apologize, I have to leave, but just a real basic question. Your contact information is available on the website, so you can
Yes,
follow
and
up.
the flyers that I passed around, if anyone didn't get them, I may not have any more. All the information is on my website too. And my contact information is there. And actually, I will pass out a bunch of cards too, so that will make its way around. So I'll pass those around too.
And before I leave, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thanks. Any other questions? No? Okay, in the back.
We've already covered this because I read late, but how far out of school do you need to be?
So GGU hasn't at this point put any limits on that. You just have to make a case for how this program would be beneficial for you where you are in your own legal career. As I say, so the folks from this cohort that just started in January, one is 1 year out, one is 2 years out, and one is 9 years out for the folks who are picked. And then in terms of the application itself, would it be helpful if I talked a little bit about GGU's application? So I don't know if Andrea Lowe is going to change it significantly or not. I can talk about what it was like last year, and the timeline will probably be roughly the same. Yeah. So Andrea, who's the Director of Employer Outreach, is the contact for BALI, so recognize that face. I know Andrea. And her information is on the website too. So if you go on the website, if you look at like how you would apply, it has information on each school rep, and her contact information is there too. So last year, what we did for the application process was we wanted to make it accessible both to people who had already graduated, but people who were third years and who would be taking potentially the bar right after they graduated, and we didn't want them to focus so much on the application that they didn't study, right? Because you have to be a licensed attorney by the time the program starts to join. So you have to have passed the bar and gone through your morality review stuff, and you have to be licensed and in good standing when the program starts. So the applications were due last year, I can't remember the exact date, but approximately, let's say 3 weeks after the July bar finished. That gave the folks who graduated, who took the July bar, 3 weeks to like hunker down and look at that. And you know, they're on tool mode after having just taken the bar, and then kind of roll through it, do what they need to do. The application is actually challenging. From all the schools, the applicants that got into it reported that they spent a lot of time and thought and effort thinking about the application. And that was on purpose. We want people who are doing this by design, not default. We want people who really do, in fact, have a commitment to building a practice. And that's one of the aims, is that we want to, again, create a community of community lawyers. We're not just doing this merely as a jobs program to get people doing something until they get something better. This is the better thing, right? So we want folks who are doing this by design, not default. So we want folks who are willing to build commitment into the application and really think it through. The application has a business plan component. We recognize that most folks who have graduated from law school have not also graduated from business school, and that many people do not have experience writing business plans. And so the application itself kind of like lists a series of questions that we want you to address in each area of it, and kind of breaks it down into human talk, right, hopefully. There's also some links for some wizard programs or training programs that teach people how to do business plans to provide some assistance on like how you think about creating a business plan. But generally, we want to know what kind of practice you're envisioning doing in terms of subject matter, and if you have a niche market you're already thinking of or not. And again, we're not expecting this to be perfect. Part of the program is to help you bolster and build this business plan, right? So it's not perfect. We're just looking for how you've thought about it so far and how realistic you're being for yourself. So subject matter, the market you're potentially trying to reach. Let's say if there are other people working in that field already and not, and how you think you might stand out. And what your sort of timeline is for how you would build this practice, what you're thinking about with that. And then what makes you the right person to build it? Like what kind of skills are you bringing to the table? Like are you a really great networker and you're a really fast learner and you feel like you can totally do this with the support that's being offered? Or maybe you've learned a lot, you just came to law school with this vision and you've been working towards it. Not everyone is like that, most folks aren't, but some people are. Maybe you already created a business before you went to law school and you're looking to do that again. You have a lot of entrepreneurial sort of spirit and fire and you're bringing that to this endeavor. But what makes you the right candidate is sort of built into the business plan as well. And you also have to provide a resume. And you have to provide references, and 3 references, at least one person needs to be a faculty member of Golden Gate for references. It can be an adjunct faculty member, it doesn't have to be a tenured faculty member.
What about an ex-faculty member?
It could be an ex-faculty member, that is fine too. Yeah, especially for folks who have been out longer, that makes complete sense. And that, yeah, and then there's a number of questions like, you know, what does it mean to you to build a practice that would reduce the justice gap or address social justice issues? Like, what does that mean to you? Like, and why would you want to do that? Are you really, how do we know that you're really committed to modest means? Sort of questions trying to get at those essence of those markers for the selection criteria. So after the written materials, then there's an interview. I'm not sure at this point if the next round is going to be interviewed just with Andrea or if it's going to be with a team of folks. Some of the schools use a combination of like probably either me and or someone from their school faculty and or someone from their law career development offices. Like the schools are using a medley of folks to do the interviews. So I'm not sure exactly which one Golden Gate will choose this time around. The selection process is usually completed in September, and then ideally there's a waiting list created too. Some folks who have just taken the bar hopefully will pass, but if they don't pass, then we have to have alternates who could fill those spaces. This last year, we also actually ended up with more open spaces because of that. Than we had planned on, and so we actually reopened applications again after the bar results came out. So in November, we reopened it again. Yep.
Is there a number of candidates from each participating school?
So each school can send 3. Yeah. Yeah.
I see on here it says like you guys are also accepting interns and externs. How does that work?
So we are accepting interns and externs. I would say that I'm mostly actually looking for either business school or paralegal interns and externs. I'm not opposed to law student interns and externs, but the work is very much around identifying best practices around business management and sort of legal practices, and then developing the infrastructure around that. So for example, I'm going to be having a extern look into like how to facilitate people doing podcasts as part of their marketing campaigns, and what kind of infrastructure we need to and training we need to make it so people can really easily do podcasting, and will become like second nature. And a law student who's really interested in developing those kinds of marketing and law practice management skills would make sense, but I would want them to know that that's what they were doing. They wouldn't be doing a ton of research. Although, quite frankly, I do have a research project that, off the top of my head, I could really deal with. And that I'm trying to figure out all the rules around legal referral services and the ethics of that, and making sure I'm not violating any of them with the things I'm having the attorneys do. But that's a whole other thing. But so I do feel like there might be one-off legal research things, but most of what I'm looking for interns and externs to do is around building practices and figuring out the latest and greatest cool things and toys and systems that we can put in place. Yeah. And I actually do have a magic wand that my kids gave me for Christmas. It has LED lights, it's very fancy. Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about the work that our current grads or some of the other grads from other schools are doing right now?
Yeah, so we have folks who want to practice in an incredibly wide range of things. Originally, with the original program design, we were wondering if we could really support people in doing all different kinds of practice. And I think as the time went on in the development, we started realizing, yeah, we didn't want to limit it. But I don't think any of us expected like how disparate the practices would actually be. They're radically different from one another, and yet with interesting little overlapping nuances, which is kind of cool. So let's see, we have folks right now doing, I'm trying to think, let me see if I can do this right. Housing, both doing tenants and landlord side stuff. We have immigration. The landlord stuff I want to point out is actually for low-income landlords. Immigration, family law, lots of interesting nuances between family law and immigration. We have folks doing a variety of different kinds of criminal law stuff, so either misdemeanor or trial work, but then also people doing appellate work and also post-conviction remedies, so parole suitability, sort of clean your record stuff, expungement stuff. So there's sort of a cluster of people doing things around criminal law. We have one person looking at criminal law specifically with children, so youth, which also overlaps with family law. Let's see, personal injury, which can be done, but if you don't have a plan for doing personal injury work, make sure you have something to justify how you can do that work, like how will you have the capital to put up the money that's required in cases like that frequently. It takes a lot of front-end money. Let's see, I'm trying to think of other kinds of things we're doing. And around the family law stuff, we have like, it's also nuanced. So for example, we have one person who's specifically doing family law for the LGBT community, Spanish-speaking LGBT community. Like I think, there's a lot of sort of niche practice things within it, within each area. Employment law. We have two different people doing employment law. But anyway, and these things look very different. And so for example, with the employment law practices, one person is specifically working to actually build a multi-resource nonprofit eventually for the Filipina worker community, versus another person is doing employment law, specifically looking at sort of small business development, and we have several people doing transactional law. I'm sorry, I left that out, it's ridiculous. But several people doing small business stuff, and one of them also has a real employment law component to that. For the pro bono placement, so everyone's in that right now, probably the thing I had to look most creatively at was how to get really interesting transactional experiences for the transactional people that was also nonprofit. And so one of our folks is working with, oh my gosh, cannot believe that their name is escaping me at this moment. They're a really interesting group in Oakland that has a for-profit firm, a B corporation with a benefit corporation, and a nonprofit component, and they help do public offerings for emerging interesting businesses or ventures, and they have their nonprofit component is all about helping nonprofits figure out how to be sustainable by developing for-profit ventures and doing localized public offerings to raise money to launch them. And that's really interesting work. We have another person who's working with the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights, which has a legal component of it that does advice to folks launching small businesses, specifically people of color launching businesses. And then one of our adjunct faculty here at GGU, Gail Kwan, is the in-house counsel for the Tides Foundation, and they're interested in taking folks in the future. I don't know if folks know about them, but so the Tides Foundation is one of the largest foundations that gives out money to nonprofits in the world. It deals with millions and millions of dollars of money coming into it and being sent out, but at some point they became an incubator for emerging nonprofits, and they have thousands of small emerging nonprofits that work underneath a subsidiary of theirs called the Tide Center, which provides sort of umbrella services, financial umbrella services to all of these ventures. And they have to make sure all those ventures are in compliance with their employment requirements, with their financial workings, with all kinds of stuff. So their in-house counsel department provides advice to the foundation itself, which has employment issues and tons of contract issues and its own stuff, but then also provides all kinds of advice and training to these emerging small nonprofits. And it's really interesting at work. It's probably one of the coolest, I think, transactional nonprofit jobs in the country, and so they're really interested in training our folks too. And then in terms of cases, one of our attorneys just won his first trial. He's doing eviction defense work primarily. An elderly gentleman who's about 70 years old called the Alameda County Bar Association a week before he was scheduled to have a bench trial to defend his right to his housing. So 1 week before, he called them asking for help getting an attorney, and the Bar Association couldn't find anyone who was willing to take on a trial with, by then, less than a week's notice, right? And so our BALI attorney was like, oh, I'll do it. And we're like, oh God, really? Okay. So it turned out that this elderly gentleman, about 40 years ago, had bought a house in Oakland. He paid for it over the years completely. He allowed his mother to live in the home with him. He put the house in his mother's name at some point. I don't know why. I wonder if he was trying to hide his assets in a divorce or something else. I don't know. It's not my business. But at any rate, everyone in the extended family was aware of the fact that he had paid for this house completely himself, and he was living in it. So his elderly mother dies. The title is still in her name. His siblings come in and want to claim the house as their inheritance, because now prices are going up and it's worth a lot of money. So the sibling who was acting as trustee for the estate moved to have him evicted from the home and to force the sale of the house. So the BALI attorney took the case. No one else would take this case. I don't think this elderly man could have defended himself at all, and was actually able to prove that this was really that gentleman's home and won the trial. So he just won that trial, which was great experience for him, his first bench trial. Great experience for the client, because there was no one in the entire Bay Area that, and believe me, people were trying really hard to find anyone in the Bay Area who would represent him, and no one would. And he kept his home. And he probably wouldn't have kept his home otherwise, because he wouldn't have known how to represent himself at all. We have another attorney who's doing a lot of nonprofit sort of business stuff, business law, and she just got hired by one of the oldest housing cooperatives in San Francisco to help them go through the mediation process of redoing their bylaws, which is a huge thing with a 400-member co-op. And so she's about to embark upon that. And I'm pairing her up with a mentor from Sustainable Economies Law Center, which does a lot of work on cooperatives and how people can work with each other, really breaking sort of, I mean, they are like the people on the cutting edge of how to do really interesting business formation things. And let's see, we have an attorney who just took on an IP case to help, as well as quite frankly, a whole bunch of compliance stuff with a food app company that's figuring out how to do an app to help micro businesses that make food out of their homes. Like, you're allowed to sell food out of your homes without having a commercial kitchen as long as you don't produce over a certain amount or whatever. There's all these compliance things. Well, they want to do an app to enable people to have food delivered from these micro home enterprises, which is a really interesting idea, but raises all kinds of compliance issues with, like, how do you know if these companies, these micro enterprises now are serving too many people or not? And how do you sort of rein in the businesses in some ways? But anyway, it's kind of cool. So we've had that as a client. They're doing some really interesting stuff. And we're only 3 months in, so that's pretty cool.
What's
Yeah.
the size of each cohort?
So ideally up to 15. This one is 14. And so the 14 from this year will stay for the second year, and the next crop will come on that will be up to 15. So
So you're just in the first cohort right now?
we're just in the first cohort. Yeah, we just launched in January. So a lot of incubators nationwide are really usually under 10. So ours is considered really, really big compared to most incubators across the country. And our feeling is that the Bay Area has enormous need. Like, we don't see this as something that's encroaching on. I guess I think, we've been, I should say, the Alameda County Bar Association and its members, the attorneys have been really generous because they recognize that there's such an enormous demand for modest means representation that, we're not hitting serious problems with people competing with each other. There's an abundance of work to be done. I think, what people need help with is figuring out their market niche and how to best meet that niche. Not necessarily needing help with there being a demand, and there's a huge demand. So we decided that we could go big.
Do you find that the members really benefit from having each other to use as resources and bounce ideas off of, or just they're going through the same types of issues?
Yeah, I think the camaraderie is something that's certainly, like, nationally, incubators that are popping up across the country, and at ours too, the camaraderie is something folks all reference as an enormous benefit. I mean, I launched 5 different nonprofit ventures at different times, like, over my career, and it is really lonely to launch something on your own, and it helps to have other people to bounce ideas off of. We've been, the first 6 months, one of the reasons I'm trying to figure out how to build up an online community that's even stronger is in the first 6 months with everyone in these nonprofit placements, we're not in the same place all the time. And so that's something that, anyway, whenever you're designing any kind of venture, really I'm building in tandem to them building, okay? Whenever you design something, there's always forces and happenings that you can't predict. And I really didn't think through perfectly, nor did I think any of the schools did, exactly how many systems we would need in place to help people communicate remotely for that first 6 months. And everybody is really looking forward to the hub being completely done and to be sort of done with their nonprofit placement so that they can be with each other. And so we're doing, in addition to trainings, bringing people together, we're also doing happy hours at different bars and picnic lunches and a variety of other things to bring everybody together as a cohort, as well as figuring out different ways that folks can share information. And we have like a shared Google Drive where we've been depositing templates to build up sort of like a forms file. But I just linked up with the oldest incubator in California is in Orange County that's been around for 6 years, so they're like really old compared to us. And so I just talked with them, and they've agreed that they're going to open up their shared file that already is in existence for all the other California incubators, and so that we can all have one shared file that everybody from incubators across the state can deposit things into. And I think that will be really wonderful. That will like start building up a much more robust place that people can go to for templates and things. Anyway, I just like building things. Yeah.
I'm not sure, you mentioned it, but how long is the boot camp kick off?
The boot camp is 2 weeks.
2 weeks?
And then, but I should say that there's lots of reoccurring boot camp opportunities. BLI just did one that, for incubators, I was one of the speakers in it, that was a day-long thing. I encourage everyone to go back to it and actually watch that, or watch it, either go to it live or watch it later. Because I feel like some of the material is helpful, if it's repetitive. So in this first 6 months, some of the folks are really practicing and taking cases. Other folks are focusing more on getting their websites looking good, figuring out their business plan more, and not billing in this first 6 months. And so information you might have taken in the training at the beginning on billing, you may have just sort of gone away. It's like living somewhere in some brain cells, but not really at your fingertips anymore. And so I think taking the later training again is really important. And that's one of the reasons I like our partnership with BLI, that folks can revisit things and get more training as they need it.
Are you married to what you kind of propose on your application, or?
No.
So you might, once you're in
Yeah.
the program, think, oh, this is a more interesting direction, or I have a skill for this, or?
Yeah, you're not at all wedded to that. Yeah, and folks are already changing. I mean, I already had one attorney say, wow, I really wanted to do family law, and it's killing me. Like, it's so depressing, I can't do it. And then the thing that he said he wanted to do instead was like so equally depressing. But people, and that was what I actually told him, was I was like, look, I personally never did family law. I represented people in prison. I could have done family law, a lot of family law with people in prison. It was so depressing to me that instead I decided to work with terminally ill people in prison. Somehow that was not as depressing to me. I don't know why. I mean, it's like to each his own what areas of law one really falls in love with and decides you want to do. Anyway, but certainly I want people to be able to experiment and change. And I think also it's a sign of real wisdom if you start doing something, you start realizing there really is not a market niche for you. And why do something like that? I would never ever hold someone to something that's not going to work out, or that they just really are bad at it. I mean, that would be an incredibly mature sign of self-reflection if someone said, I suck at this. I want to do something else. I don't want to create a bad attorney in the world. So, yeah.
There's enough of those already.
Yeah, for real. Seriously. Okay. Yeah.
I'm thinking of folks who may be I think could be potential clients for some of your people, especially the nonprofit things. Would
Yeah.
you just direct them to the website?
Yeah, or in about a month, the website will make it more clear about how organizations can come to us versus or how people can refer, as a third party can refer potential clients in. For now, rather than just an individual going through it. So for now, I would just say have them email me directly. Yeah. And then what I do, just so you all know, in case you're thinking about being part of the program, is we want to have sort of an egalitarian, community building, non-competitive feel to the hub itself, so that it fosters mutual learning and growth, and so everyone can thrive, right? And so one of the things we all voted on, everyone who was part of the first cohort got to vote on, which will impact design moving forward, is how to deal with referrals coming in. Should it be first come, first served? Do you jump on as quick as possible? How will that play out? How do we decrease resentments and things? So the portal on the website, as people come in, if someone came in as a client through the website, or if they come in person, I'm going to give them a tablet to do the form on the website. It will send a notice to all the attorneys that practice in the particular area. It will give them, all of the attorneys will get that little summary of what the person looks like, but there's going to be a computer-generated ranking of who gets first dibs. That's at the very beginning, the very first time, random, right? That first person gets to choose if they want it or not, and then the next person gets to choose, and it goes sort of down that way. And once you take a case, you fall down to the bottom of the rotation. And it sort of works around that way. The Modest Means Referral Panel at the Alameda County Bar Association that folks can join without fees. All the fees are waived for our participants. That also works in that way. Once you're on that panel, it goes to the first person who's online and once on queue, and once you take a case, you drop to the bottom of the queue. And it sort of rotates through so that you don't feel like you're on a rat race all the time. And then what we're doing until, for things like with organizational referrals and other kinds of referrals that come in, and I'm getting referrals from members of the Bar Association, other things, what I do is I send it out. I don't make assumptions about who's practicing in what area because someone could be changing their mind and I just don't even know at that moment. I send out a description to everybody, and they have to, like, they can reply and say whether or not they feel like they have the resources to take it. If you take one, the next time you have to give someone else a chance. Like, you don't get first dibs to just jump on it. But this will be automated through our computer system soon, so I don't have to play these games and everybody doesn't have to, like, sort of be worried about this. But the idea is to make it feel a little bit less hyper-competitive. And then also the website has a behind-the-scenes component, that inward-facing component where people can say things like, hey, I saw that this came up. I don't even know where I am on the list. I am swamped. I can't take any more work, but I did something like this. I have some sample documents. If anyone takes it, you can let me know. And so we can chat about different cases that come through, which is really cool. So, as a community. I should say I'm trying to build up a bank of attorneys who are hiring for short-term temporary contract work through the incubator is another way to help build up people's financial support in the first 6 months especially. A lot of attorneys, like everybody had some kind of a sustainability plan for themselves as they first came in. Some, like there's one fitness instructor, there's trying to think, there's a bunch of people who are doing contract work, there's some people who are bartending. I mean, like there's people who have all different kinds of things they're doing. Some people are very fortunate to have savings, although there's very few of them. But I put a call out to the Alameda County Bar Association for attorneys who, again, have short-term temporary work to hire first through BALI and to support the Bar Association's efforts. And within like a week of sending that out, I got 3 attorneys who wanted to hire that way. And they all ended up hiring, in fact, through BALI. And then what I did is I asked them to send me a job description. I sent it out to all of the attorneys and said, here's a job description, go apply. God be with you, basically. Whoever gets this, good luck. As attorneys are starting to get more paid work and are weaning themselves off of contract work, I'm asking them to think about transitioning that contract work to a BALI attorney, either in their same cohort or if they start weaning themselves off, let's say in like January, to transition it to another one, or say they start weaning themselves off in October, we'll have a group of people who have been picked who might be awaiting bar results or some who are already licensed to start transitioning it through the BALI community so that we can start growing a broader web of contractors who are contracting through BALI and helping support folks as they are building their practices. Anyway, so that's one of the efforts I'm doing too. But that's not, that infrastructure is not up yet, so I totally, right, so I can't guarantee that people will have contract work, but I'm certainly working to try to make that happen.
Is there any income qualification
No.
in the application?
No. Demographically, in case anyone's just like, who are these folks who got picked in the first round? It's kind of interesting. The majority of our attorneys in the first cohort, so there's 14 of them, the majority are people of color. All but 4 are either immigrants or the children of immigrants. Together they speak 7 different languages. They all but 2 of them are living at the modest means threshold of 3 times the poverty level or below. Many of them are at the poverty level. Many of them should be getting entitlements, even if they don't, like food stamps and other things. So one of the things I did was actually have a training for them on how to access entitlements that they could use, and then they would know how to access them for clients too. And you know, and I looked at their household incomes because at the end of this, I'm hoping their household incomes will have gone up. And so I wanted to see what the baseline was when they were coming into the program. This is not, and it is not a group of people who are living large already who are coming into this program. Almost the average debt is, I haven't calculated the average debt, but most folks seem to have around $100,000 of debt. Some people, 2 people have over $200,000 of debt, 1 has over $250,000 of debt. Of the for people who are married or who have significant others, all of them have the partners and all have the student debt as well. So it was really important for me to actually like look at what the economic situation was of folks when they come in, and that's part of what it means to be part of this program, is that you have to answer annoying questions for me, so that I can get a sense of how we're actually having an impact on people's lives, not just clients, legal clients, but the actual folks in the program, because part of my job is to help people build sustainable practices that help them thrive in their own lives. So I have to figure out who they are and how they actually are functioning themselves.
How many applicants did you have?
I don't know, that's a really good question, because nobody asked all of the schools to report back on the number of applicants total. Like, we only got the finals. Yeah, so I actually don't know.
Okay, well, unless anyone has any other questions, thank you so much, Cynthia, for being here. Appreciate it.
So please be in touch, and no question is too little.